Good evening and welcome to our attendees for tonight's program. My name is Kristen Noone and I'm the Associate Athletic Director at Trinity College. As part of our continued celebration of the 50th anniversary of Title IX, connecting the past to the present, I'm excited to join our alumni panel who have transitioned from athlete to coach in their respective sports. For those who attended the prior conversation with the early birds, representing the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we have engaged these four Bantam athletes tonight who represent the 2000 and 2010 decades. So that is 30 to 40 years after the enactment of Title IX. I am really excited for them to share their experiences and for us to hear their perspectives from where they are today as they continue to play a vital role in athletics. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items. Tonight's program will be recorded and the recording will be made available on the 50th anniversary celebration of Title IX webpage on the Trinity website soon. You will be sent a post-event survey and we appreciate your feedback, but also during the event, please feel free to share your thoughts via the Q&A function throughout the evening. And now on to our program. It is my pleasure to welcome our panelists tonight. Please give us a brief introduction, including your name, year of graduation from Trinity, sport or sports in which you participated at Trinity, and your current position in institution or organization. And we'll kick things off with Michelle Smith, class of 2008.
Hi, everybody. Michelle Smith, class of 2008 undergrad, and I'm a double Bantam. So I had the opportunity to come back and earn a master's degree. So 2008 and master's 2011. I was mostly a lacrosse player in my time at Trinity, but I did play my sophomore year on the field hockey team as a, I'm just gonna call it a pin cushion. I can't even really call it a backup goalkeeper, but I was on the team. So spent some time with the field hockey team as well as 4 years with the lacrosse program. And now I am currently the head coach at Babson College for women's lacrosse. I've been there for, just finished up 11 years. So goes by fast.
That's crazy for me, Michelle. I remember you when you were an athlete here. So I'm getting old for sure.
Yeah.
Kim Weiss, class of 2011.
Yep, so I'm Kim Weiss. I graduated from Trinity in 2011 and I participated in ice hockey while I was there. And now I'm an assistant coach with the Maryland Black Bears in what's called the North American Hockey League. It's a junior boys hockey league. So it's kind of the reason that all the hockey freshmen were older than I was when they were boys on the boys hockey team. They're 20 years old or 21 years old. So I'm coaching boys between 17 and 20 years old.
Awesome. Shantel Hanniford.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shantel Hanniford. I graduated from Trinity in 2014. I participated on the Trinity women's basketball team. I almost played softball. I did the preseason with them my sophomore year, and I tore my meniscus in that off-season time. And so I had to have surgery during the spring season. So I missed out on that opportunity, but I became really close with a lot of the softball players. And so my current position is a little tricky. So I'm currently at a junior boarding school. So that's pre-K to ninth grade. And I teach ninth grade history. I'm an advisor to seventh graders. I am the head women's basketball coach. And one of my main roles is I'm the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I say, pre-K to ninth grade because it's a big school. And so there's a lot of different hats that a lot of people wear while they're here. And so that's kind of, a little background about where I am. The school is called Indian Mountain School. And so it's located like close to Hotchkiss in Lakeville area, which is about an hour, 15 minutes from Hartford.
Thanks, Shantel. And bless you for dealing with that varied age group you just described. Lynn Leong, class of 2005.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Lynn Leong. Well, first I want to say thank you to Trinity Athletics and Trinity College and Kristen and everyone else here that are attending the panel tonight. I'm so grateful. I'm class of 2005. My sport is squash. I'm I'm originally from Malaysia and played top 2 in my 4 years of my career at Trinity. My current position is the director of squash and the head coach for a men's and women's team at Yale University.
Awesome. Well, welcome to all of our panelists. We're going to dive right in. My first question is, please share with us when or how you knew you wanted to be a coach and why, and who or what had the most influence on your decision. And I'm going to leave it open to whoever wants to kick it off.
I'll kick it off. I'll go for it. I think any of my former teammates and my family would say that I was always probably going to be a coach. So I don't know that there was a specific moment. I just always loved my sport and loved being a part of a team, and couldn't really imagine myself not being a part of a team, even though I wasn't going to play anymore. But I would say that my biggest influences were just the coaches I had as a kid growing up and all the way through Trinity, including Annie McPhee at Trinity for my 4 years. And they just, made me feel like they believed in me and that they saw something in me. And that kind of player coach connection was so special to me. It was something that I wanted to carry forward and then have that with my players as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim. I don't think that's necessarily always the path. Like someone knows early on that they want to be a coach. So does anyone else want to share with us when you knew and how and why? Lynn.
Well, I'm the opposite. I didn't know I was going to be a coach. Absolute opposite. I actually started coaching, I think, during my summers, in between these, my career at 4 years at Trinity. I again came from a background. My dad was my coach. I had, went through this whole watching him coach throughout my growing up years and didn't think like I was going to follow his path. Of course, until I came to Trinity, I go like, well, what's a good way, to stay in shape and to earn money at the same time. And, my coach, Wendy Bartlett, said like, Lynn, why don't you start coaching in the summer? And I go, all right, I'll give it a try. And I think it just kept I find it rewarding after doing all these like summer sessions and found out that, I've gotten pretty good at it. I enjoy teaching a new sport to someone else who doesn't know how to play. I find it rewarding because you made a huge impact in your life. So I kept going with it. And obviously at that time after I graduated, I go like, why not take it further and just keep going and see where it takes me.
And here you are coaching against your former coach. So really has come full circle for you.
I know, thanks to Wendy.
Yeah, for sure. Michelle and Shantel.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I probably tracked a little more similarly to Lynn. Just sort of always enjoyed kind of being outside and in the summertime, not really loving the idea of a desk job. I had one of those in between my senior year of high school and coming to college. And I think it was probably my most miserable summer. So I really just wanted to avoid doing something boring over the summer. So I coached a lot at camps and I enjoyed it. And then getting ready to graduate, couldn't imagine not continuing to be involved in the sport. So sort of thought that coaching would be more of an opportunity to actually get my master's degree paid for. So I spent a year away at Dickinson, and then very thankful to Kate Livesay, who was the lacrosse coach at the time, and Ann Parmenter, the field hockey coach, who just welcomed me back to Trinity with open arms and gave me the opportunity to get my degree. And I thought that was really the start of maybe going to law school or doing something after. And the more I did it, the more it just became something I couldn't not do. And so really also got very lucky that a great job opened up right at the time that I needed to be moving on, because I had finished my degree at Trinity and I got to return home and work at a great institution and, take over a really successful program. So I think coaching for me was a little bit more, I think, luck along the way, surrounded by really good people who took care of me and, just encouraged me. And, I remember getting ready to come back to Trinity, and there was some, you know, where's she gonna live? We were adding a second graduate assistant position, and you know, Kate was like, you can live in my basement, it will be fine, we'll make it work. And you know, I'm very thankful for people along the way. I remember Anne Parmenter like went around with the facilities director and was like, where is there an open apartment? We need one. You know, so just, I think, again, I got really lucky along the way to be surrounded by great people. And I was in the right place at the right time. And with that, I got an opportunity to leverage what I love to do and what I really enjoy doing with great people. So.
That's awesome. I think we all know as coaches, sometimes it is about being in the right place at the right time and making those connections. Some wonderful connections happened right before we logged on here with this panel. So really great we could bring you all together. And Shantel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess for me, when I figured out that I wanted to be a coach was when I figured out I wanted to be a teacher, which was a little bit later in life. But I guess I always kind of had that desire or that skill. Growing up, I'm the oldest for my immediate family. I have a stepsister who's a couple years older than me, but like for my siblings, I'm the oldest. And so like I've always was the one that had to play the mom role in many ways of babysitting and being that leader for my younger siblings. And so I would always try to teach them different things. And so I always had a desire to be a teacher in some ways. And so I think it was more formalized in my junior year once I started to take more. So I majored in education and psychology at Trinity. And so my junior year, because, you know, you have to declare at the end of your sophomore year. And so junior year, once I was locked in, I couldn't, you know, shift anymore. And I started to get more serious about education. I started to participate more in programs in Hartford, and one of my classes, Analyzing Schools, I had to actually do an internship at a school in Hartford. And I think at the time it wasn't Hartford Trinity Magnet Academy at HMTCA, I think is what it is for short. I forget what the name was at the time. I think it was just the Magnet School. And so I did my internship there and fell in love with the school. They also had a program where they, it was an after school program. So part of that program, they also like had sports as part of the, as part of being an intern there. And so like getting my feet wet a little bit early on allowed me to kind of feel like that could be something I could step into. So that was my junior year that I did that. And then I also took a coaching seminar with Robin Shepard when I was at Trinity. And so that kind of helped me figure out exactly what I wanted to do later on. And so, you know, as I was growing up, it was like the future was so distant. It's like, okay, yeah, when I get to college, okay, that's never gonna happen. Okay, when I graduate, oh, that's never gonna happen. But then those things actually started to happen. And so like I had to figure out what I was gonna do after I graduated because it just seemed so distant. And so I, started to feel like education was something that I actually could do. And so I felt like it would be perfect if I could teach and then also coach. And so that's where the two came together for me. And I really do feel that teaching and coaching, like they go hand in hand. In psychology, you know, I use a lot of the knowledge and skills that I learned at Trinity here in my day-to-day. So I definitely feel like that opportunity allowed me to feel like I could be a great teacher, but then even a better coach.
Awesome. Well, varied backgrounds and how you came into the profession. Just curious, when I was the head swimming and diving coach here, I would often, people ask, what do you do? I'm the head swimming and diving coach at Trinity College. Oh, is that a full-time job? What do you do in your summers? Like there's a perception out there that it isn't. Does anyone run into that today? Yeah.
All the time. I actually, if I'm meeting somebody for like the first time and in a very more casual setting, like, what do you do? I just tell them that I work at the college. So I just say I work at Babson College, and like, if there's interest beyond that, then, you know, like I'll engage. But when I start with that, I coach, you know, lacrosse at the college level. The questions are so, I don't want to call them dumb, but they come across very ill-informed at times, and just like, I have a really hard time, like, if you're not really that interesting, like, I'm not going to be that friendly. So I spare myself from getting in some of those situations just by saying I work at a college, and then let it go from there. Because there are a lot of people that don't really fully grasp what college coaches are doing, especially when you tell them it's Division III as well. I think that factors in a lot. Oh, is that full time? Like, what do you do when you're not at practice? Well, I don't really have enough time to tell you that. So
That's true. I think they only think our jobs are really, you know, coaching on court, you know, dictating like what they're doing from day to day. But, you know, it really, you know, we have recruiting, we have, you know, mentorship, you know, there's a lot going into this coaching. And like we were just talking about earlier before we start this, like, I don't think there is not really a downtime. I mean, we should be carving some downtime for ourselves, but it's very hard to have downtime when you're managing a team of, you know, let's say, you know, 26. I have a team of almost 30 kids on the team, men and women, very ambitious, and they still do need structure, guidance, and just a lot of talk. So it's not necessarily just everything on the squash court. So yeah, it's, you know, it's tough sometimes when people ask you and think you're like, you know, oh, I'm just teaching them really how to play. No, it's way more than that. So I think that's what's, you know, I guess it's consistently we have to teach, you know, audiences, like, you know, people who what we do in college sports is not really just teaching them how to play. It's more about teaching them how to be good leaders, you know, guiding them to what's coming up next, and give them as much of you know, advice, and not just advice, but learning from them as well, and guiding them through their college years.
Right. Well, and that's part of, right, the purpose of this panel is to share exactly what you do. I will have some directed questions for you. Just curious, COVID a challenge for anyone in your coaching profession? Right.
I'll agree. Yeah.
So add to that, supporting your student athletes, your athletes in that capacity is a full-time job in itself, right? So you know, we talk a lot about work-life balance, and certainly in coaching, I think sometimes that gets a little out of whack. All with great intentions, though, right? So I do have a few directed questions. I'll start with Shantel. You have a big job, as you described, in addition to coaching. So when we say, you know, is coaching a full-time job, you've got 3 full-time jobs, right? How do you find the balance of all of that? And do you think there are distinct differences in coaching high school athletes versus college athletes in the coaching you received as a collegiate athlete?
Yeah, it's a great question. I definitely feel like this year that I've developed better balance. And it's funny because at Trinity, I always felt like the times when I was the most productive was when I was in season, right? So like having more to do at times makes me feel, I don't know if any of you felt that, but like allows me to structure my time differently, right? So I'm now 8 years out of undergrad. And so like having the time to adjust to adult life has been quite the experience. And so this is my 3rd year in the role as the DI director. So I had some time to get used to the job before 2020 hit, right? And so when 2020 happened and, you know, the pandemic hit, but then there was also this like racial reckoning. And I think it really gave me an opportunity to make 2 decisions, right? One was, am I going to continue to like still try to figure out what this role is going to be for IMS? And then like, how do I navigate and help the school move into a direction that is meaningful and am I the person to usher the school into this next phase of where the school needs to be? The school is now 100 years old. It started in 1922, and now we're, 2022. And so there was a lot of shifts happening institutionally for us last year. And so this year, I really feel like I've been able to balance coaching. I used to coach softball as well. So this is the first year that I'm just coaching basketball. And I was the assistant for softball, but it was taxing. It was a lot. And so I'm also in grad school right now at GW. So talk about having a lot on my plate. I don't know how I do it, but I am balancing. I still got to run today right before this.
Nice.
So like, got to keep, keep the body moving.
Self-care is important.
You need to do it. It's serious, right? And so I feel like this year I have been able to have a better balance of knowing when do I have time to grade, when do I have time to lesson plan, when do I have time to like be with the students and like actually be present and be aware of what they need, be aware of what the school, like institutionally, like what the school needs, right? And then also what faculty need to help with professional development, right? So like there is a lot that like each avenue or each role that I have at the school requires. And our head of school, she's amazing. She also went to a NESCAC school. She went to 2 NESCAC schools. She started at Tufts and then transferred to Bates. And so she played lacrosse. I didn't tell her I was going to be on here, but I'll probably tell her afterwards. But and we have a lot of NESCAC grads here too. And so I do feel like there is that sense of camaraderie that we have and allows me to feel like I can still do my job and trust that the school is still going to fulfill the necessary requirements that we have as teachers, as coaches, right? And so basketball tends to like be like secondary, but like this year it was like my pride and joy because I started this year and I was like, ugh, last year was a drag, and like I was really looking forward to basketball season. And because like we're a smaller school, like we use Hotchkiss, we use their facilities, so for sports, for our practice, we practice in the morning. And so like I wake up at like 7:30 and I'm like ready to go because it's basketball, right? And I'm so excited. And so like that really gets me excited to start my day. And so like I really felt like this year, like having basketball and coaching the girls helped me to feel like I can do those other roles very effectively. So it wasn't a matter of like it was sucking my energy, it was really giving me energy. And so I really appreciate how the school is structured and allows me to do a lot of the things that I like to do. And I don't think that I would be here 4 years later in the middle of nowhere trying to just survive. So yeah.
I think you did, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you might have brought your team to one of the Trinity games.
I did. Yeah. We're so excited. It was I think it was the first round. It was a Sunday game because they had a bye. So maybe it was the second round because they had to buy that first round. Yeah, I did bring the team and they enjoyed it. I actually brought my sister too, who's 11. And so like she lives in Hartford. So like I picked her up on the way. So she got to drive with the team. It was this whole thing, family affair. Beautiful.
Awesome. Well, thank you for all your work in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Really important work. You are literally sending those students to our institutions, and they come with a great education and background. Michelle, you had the unique experience of returning to Trinity as an assistant coach. Can you talk about the differences in that role as an assistant versus your role now as a head coach?
Gosh, yeah, it feels like ages ago. But listen, I think being an assistant coach in general, I think right out of college is hard to do when you're very similar in age to the players that you're coaching. You're trying to figure out who you are as a coach and to find your voice. And then I think coming back for me to Trinity was also challenging because some of those current players were teammates of mine that I was now sort of in that role. as a coach for and with. And so I think it was challenging. There were definitely struggles with that, but I really credit having great mentors in Kate Livesay and Ann Parmenter to really they took me on, and they didn't treat me like a former player. They treated me like a colleague, and I think that really helped my my growth and my development as an assistant coach, because I think it would have been really easy to just like, oh, like, here's Mish, she's back and she was a great player, and we'll just keep treating her like that. But instead, they treated me like a friend and a colleague, and they really brought me along. So I really think, actually, at the end of the day, that opportunity allowed me to become a better coach faster, because a lot of times, sometimes as a young assistant coach, you do kind of end up, a young assistant coach is going to dictate how quickly they advance based on what they want to take on and how mature they act, and how how they're able to sort of handle situations. But when you're almost sort of forced into being an adult right away and treating yourself like a professional because others are treating you that way, I think it really helps. So it was a really wonderful opportunity. I think I also got to work with people who knew me as a person. So they already knew what my strengths were and my weaknesses are as far as my communication skills or, my knowledge of the game. So they helped me close the gap quickly in some of those areas as well. So just really fortunate. I think while it was probably more challenging at times than being an assistant coach somewhere else for somebody who didn't know me, it was equally as beneficial, I think, for my growth and development. And I think the other piece too, when you're a young assistant, knowing when you're ready to kind of take that next step to become a head coach. And again, got really fortunate that I have people in my corner who are like, you are ready for this. You need to be applying for these jobs. You need to look at head coaching positions versus just assuming that the next step is to go be someone else's assistant. So, I loved my time back at Trinity. I will also say one of the unique things about it, and even as a player, you have no idea what goes into the job that your coaches are doing for you, or administrators, or, support staff. I always loved Penny, our locker room at Trinity way back when. And now I'm really
I remember
myself,
Penny.
But like Penny's behind the equipment room and we were right there. Our lockers were right next to her window. And I loved her. And then, coming back, I'm like, oh my God, Penny, like, you do so much for us. And I don't think we ever really appreciated it. So I am very grateful to have been able to come back to Trinity and actually get to thank on a daily basis all those people who gave a lot to me as a student athlete that I think I was just a little blind to and a little naive to. So, I look back at those 2 years as really, really impactful on who I am as a coach and who I am now as a head coach for my assistants, because I try to emulate that same experience, even though I can't, I don't usually end up getting my former players to come back. We graduate some pretty high-powered young businesswomen at Babson, but at the same time, I still get young assistants, and I really try to treat them like a colleague, because I think that just goes so far in their growth and development.
Right. Well, thanks for that. And, I think it's important to note, all of you are seasoned veteran coaches at this point, right? And whether you're a head or assistant coach, you have folks who are younger than you looking to you as mentors, whether you know it or not, or realize it or not. And that's yet another job on top of your full-time job, right? Is the responsibility you have in mentoring young women as they move up through the profession. So hats off to you. And certainly, Michelle, thank you for that shout out to Penny Lawrence. You should all know Penny received the Trustees Award of Excellence this weekend at commencement. So really a great acknowledgement for Penny, and who is now used to just support our women's teams and now supports all 30 varsity teams. just Penny and some student workers. So incredible feat. So for Lynn and Kim, you're in a little bit of a more unique situation. Do you feel there are any differences in being women identifying coaches, if you identify that way, and coaching men's teams specifically than you would suppose or you observed in men identifying coaches coaching men? Either one, kick it off.
I guess I don't really consider myself women or identify myself women identifying coaches. I grew up kind of having that, at least in squash, most of my coaches were male, and also my experiences coaching throughout my, before I got to collegiate coaching, most of my students were all like boys too. And, I did coach girls. So I had a lot of experience in terms of growing to how to coach just boys to adult men. And those experience kind of helped me to become sort of that understanding of how to, I guess more so of how to attend to the what they need on the team. And I think I see myself like consistently challenging myself. So if a guy thinks like I cannot coach him, I go like, well, no, I'm going to show you. I know what you need, and this is what I'm going to tell you to do. So it's always been that way for me. And I think just because I thank my dad for, telling me growing up, like, no one can say or tell you exactly what you can't do. You're going to go up there and show them this is how you can achieve anything you want, and not let anyone kind of like shame you or put you down in that way. So I guess not right now as I'm going in, well, as I took on this role, I had four years of good experience as an assistant coach before taking the head coaching job, managing the men's team with, alongside the head coach, David Talbot at that time. And it was a very easy transition for me. I think it's because I thank all those experience I had before coming to collegiate squash, coaching at, from young kids to, all the way out through when they get to college. So that seemed a little bit more, a little bit easier for me to kind of get my work going along. So I don't know, Kim, how you feel about that?
No, Lynn, I totally agree. I was going to say the same thing, that I grew up being coached exclusively by men. My first female coach wasn't until college, and it was my assistants. So I was used to the voice in the room, being a different gender, but like Lynn, like you almost don't think of it that way. And so I'd say in my day-to-day of being a coach with my team and my players, I'm the same coach when I coached girls for 10 years. I coached boys high school while I was coaching girls at one time, and now I'm exclusively coaching a male team. But I'm the same coach. I treat my athletes the same regardless of their gender. I just try to be my best for them and show them the respect that they deserve. I would say the outside perception, I get a little more, I don't know what the right word is, but there's instances that remind you that you might be the only woman around or in that literal arena. Like for instance, on a hockey bench, you'll have the refs come over and think you're a trainer and not the coach.
I agree with you about
yeah. I was gonna say I've showed up
happened
in
to
a
you
rink
too,
for
Lynn?
morning skate this year and asked the guy that drove the Zamboni for pucks and nets, and he asked why a skating coach would need pucks and nets. And I was like, well, I'm not the skating coach, I'm the coach. So there's definitely moments where when you're in a male dominated world, and for people that don't know, in my league, I'm the first woman to coach in this league. So you go to hotels and you're checking into the hotel for your team, and they're like, you're with Maryland? You're like, yeah. They're like, oh, I didn't know they had a social media person. Like, nope, I'm the coach. So you have moments like that but like I said, the day-to-day with your team and athletes, all of that it's coaching. It's not male, female, none of that. It's just coach and player relationship. But definitely there's some moments in the outside world that take a little bit of grace and patience, and maybe some stern reminders to them that you are a coach and you're a part of that group.
Right. I relate to Kim's experiences as well on the optics on what outside of, checking into hotels, like, are you the team manager? I was like, no, I'm the head coach, But yes, you're right. I think the day-to-day work, it seems easy just because, we believe in what we do, and we coach the way we want to coach them. But yeah, I think changing perspective of what the outside world sees us is I guess the big step.
Right. And I think that's great that is your experience. I think it also gives you a level of confidence, which certainly shows through. And yeah, you're right. Changing perception, changing what the optics may appear to be, is part of your job. And so that's really cool. And again, I think just highlighting, right, varied experiences here and what you all have to offer in very different paths, is really quite interesting to me. Quick one on this one, show of hands. How many of you tried to negotiate salary in your first coaching job when you were offered? 0, show of hands. Okay.
Well, I tried to negotiate my salary when I took on the head coach job, but
okay. So that was my follow-up. How about subsequent jobs? Subsequent jobs. Did you learn anything? Michelle and Shantel, we have still not learned.
No, I actually, when I got the offer for my head coaching job, I responded, yes, I want the job, right there on the call. And the athletic director said, why don't you take 24 hours and just think about it?
Right.
I was like, oh, right. That's what you're supposed to do. Sorry.
Yep.
So yeah, no, here we are, and I've been here 11 years. I haven't gone anywhere, so haven't had the chance.
Yeah, and I think, right, it's just an interesting question. I would venture to guess if there were men in the room and I asked that question, there might be a different response. I think that's changing for sure. But just a quick anecdote, I'm sure Rick Hazelton, our former athletic director who hired me as a coach, would be fine with me sharing this. But, I did, at one point say, hey, how come you offered me so low when I first took the job? And he said, you didn't ask for anything higher. And he was spot on, right? So it's incumbent on us. And, as we've said, it's incumbent on us to mentor the young women coming after us. And helping them to negotiate.
Can I just follow? I know you said it was a quick one, so I don't know.
No, please. Please do.
Yeah, so I would say what I didn't say in like my intro, like I was the first one to go to college, like for my family. My stepsister, like she was older, and so it's like she went to college, but like for my mom and my dad, like I was the first one to go to college, right? And so like there's that like breaking the glass ceiling in many ways, like for my family, that I was like the leader to do that. And so like I was born in Jamaica, then migrated to Nantucket, Massachusetts, and then went to Trinity College. And then like, so I feel like there were so many like moments of like, I'm making the family proud, right? In many ways. And then like stepping into like a teacher job, like that was like a big deal. And then like when I also taught in Hartford for 4 years. I did like AmeriCorps, so like similar to Teach for America. So like I, started like scraping low, humble beginnings, whatever. But like, I think once I started to feel like, okay, like I deserve to be in this position, and that I deserve, like, it's not just like I'm making my family proud type thing. Like I know that I have the skills and the ability to be in the room and to be a leader, and like all the things that like, Trinity teaches you, like my family taught me. Like, so I didn't really negotiate until last year when I was like thinking like, do I even want to like be here, and just like trying to like go through all the processing and like everything that came at us with the pandemic, and like all of the stuff, like being a Black woman that I had to like then deal with, and so like I didn't negotiate for a lot of those reasons. But I specifically remember like going to, when I think I was a junior or senior, And we had to like go to a whole summer. It was a whole team. We had this big binder. I think I still have the binder, but it was like a seminar that we had to talk about how to negotiate. And I was like, when am I ever going to use this? But like, I did go back to that binder last year, and I was like, okay, I did go talk to, and my head of school is a woman. So like, I also feel like, and again, like, as I said, like she went to a NESCAC school, like we related in many ways, like on those levels. And maybe if it was a man, and if we didn't share a lot of those similarities, like maybe I wouldn't have. And
Right.
like, I'm happy I did, because, you know, I'm in a better position now. But like, I just think there's a lot of factors that contributed to me hesitating to make that decision early on. And now that I'm about to be 30 this year, I'm just seeing life so clear now. So I feel like I'm, yeah, making the right steps.
Yeah, for sure. And congratulations. I mean, I think there is always that "do I deserve it?" question mark, right, in your head. And yeah, you do. Every one of you do, right? So get out there and do it. And it's pretty cool to hear that you referred back to the binder. I think that's awesome.
I have it. I keep everything.
That's awesome.
I think no one else. I just want to talk about the negotiation of salary again. I don't think everyone ever. I don't know if any of you had experience of anyone teaching you how to go in and negotiate. I don't think I've learned any of this until recently. But for years, you're just, you know, thinking, how much am I worth? Like, okay, if someone gives you that salary, is this how much it's supposed to be? Or is this, you know, I've always grown up just using my sort of merit base. I guess if I work hard, people see how good I am, they will pay me accordingly. But of course, just keep going like that. I didn't, you know, you just never really thought to question unless it's, you know, really, I guess you don't really question it unless you're really being pointed out to do that. So I still think till today, even as women coaches, I'm not sure if it's prevalent in today's world still, that people are still not brave enough to know how to speak up or ask how to go about it.
Right.
I think that's the question. Yeah.
And that's any profession, not just the coaching profession, right?
Right.
I do think, you know, at Trinity, our staff has made strides in our Career and Life Design Center to provide that support education to all students on campus as they head out into the real world. So this is the part of the celebration of the 50th anniversary of Title IX. And so switching gears a little bit, how do you think Title IX impacted your experience as an intercollegiate athlete and now as a coach, if it did at all? And just answer away.
I can start a little on that. I mean, I think, you know, I've spent some time thinking about this because we actually sort of did a similar celebration at Babson for our student athletes. And at first the conversation in the room was, let's just celebrate all the progress we've made as far as Title IX goes. And I said, that's great. And I'm so excited to celebrate progress, but I felt really strongly about including an educational component for our current student athletes. Because I think they're a generation of student athletes. And while I'm officially, I think this is the first or second year as a coach that I'm coaching student athletes who are not the same generation as I am, which has been interesting. I still feel as though I'm included in this, and that like I grew up with the access that I needed to the sports that I wanted to play. So I never thought about, oh, I can't play that sport because, you know, X or Y, you know, even to the point where in my town growing up, we didn't have girls lacrosse because it wasn't as popular then, but I played with the boys and that was totally fine. It was never something that I was shut out of because of my gender. So I think I consider myself very lucky to have grown up with that access to sport. And I think that, you know, I also though remember, and I'm not sure if they still even do this, but the NESCAC conference put on a coaching symposium that I went to, and it was wonderful. And that's where I was really sort of, my eyes were open to just how much work went into getting access through the passage of Title IX. So, you know, I really felt like in college, that was the first time that I realized, wow, a lot of people before me have done a lot of work to get, you know, to this place where I haven't had to think about it, right? You know, but on the flip side, I would say my experience as a head coach, or just as a coach in general, is that what we have for access is really fantastic. And the opportunities for our student athletes, our young women to be playing sport, to be empowered to play sport, you know, and to have that be really something that they're almost expected to do growing up, I think is wonderful. But at the college level, what we see is sort of, I think, almost like silent or subtle ways in which we're still not there, and we still are not equal. And I think that is something for me as a coach now that I sort of am pretty acutely aware to. I listen when my athletes get annoyed about, you know, all the men's sports being celebrated on Instagram, but where are the pictures of the women playing sports? And I feel like my role is to educate them, but also to empower their voices, because at the end of the day, you know, them giving voice to those frustrations, that's what's going to create change. Because I do think sometimes as a head coach, like, people don't really want to hear you complain about, oh, women's sports isn't getting what they should. Oh, like, there goes the complaint, or there goes the Title IX complainer. People don't want to hear that. And so it feels a little dangerous sometimes, because what we're talking about is not the holistic difference between men and women, but it's in these very subtle ways that, if you pay attention and you open your eyes to, can almost feel like the death of 1,000 cuts at times. And so with it, I think we've come a really, really long way, but I also think there's a ton of progress that we need to continue to be working towards seeing. And it's in the slightest of things. I mean, I think the NLI deals and the money that some of these male athletes are making now, I mean, they're not doing anything for that money. They're just getting paid now to transfer to big institutions, and those are $1 million contracts that they're signing. Where's that for, you know, the star women's lacrosse player? It's not. She's posing in front of her Jeep for Pennzoil for probably like $50 a photo, you know? So I think that, you know, there's still a lot of progress that we have to continue to make. I feel fortunate that I've had the opportunity I have had, and then passionate about really empowering the next generation of student athletes to continue to find their voice and to continue to advocate for change, as well as getting our male counterparts involved in that conversation. I think that's something that is also really, really powerful and really important to the next phase of growth in women's athletics, is the support of all those, you know, girl dads out there who are going to support what their daughters are doing. And you now have dads whose moms were athletes, and who they watch their moms be athletes. They watch their sisters be athletes. So why shouldn't their daughters be that same, you know, level of athlete that their son could be? So I think we've come a long way, but I'm still, you know, getting pretty vocal about finding future ways to promote growth.
Right, and that's part of the celebration. And thank you for that, Michelle. I think you're spot on. We are 50 years out from the enactment, right? And so I think we have lost a little bit of that history. We have lost some of the pioneers of the Title IX enactment and in the world of athletics, because as we know, Title IX encompasses more than just athletics, although that is a big part. Kim, Lynn, Shantel, any thoughts on there, or should we move along here?
I do have a funny story. So as I mentioned, I am a history teacher. And so right now for 9th grade, they're like working on this project for sustainable development goals. And so like the structure of our day is a little bit different than like us like standing up and teaching. It's a lot of just like more informal, and like they're doing their project. And so I got super excited that I was going to talk on this panel. And so I was telling them all about it. I was like, oh, you know, Ms. Hanniford, because there's always this thing that they don't believe that I'm like a good athlete. I was like, why would you not believe that? Like, I still kind of look athletic.
You just got to show 'em.
And you know, so like I always have to like verify that I like was somewhat good. So anyway, so we were having this discussion. I told him I'm on the panel, and like I told him that the panel is like about Title IX. And so I was like, do you guys know what that is? And they're ninth graders. And they're like, no, and they're ninth grade girls. And they say they don't know. And so I was like, how do you not know? And so, you know, I did have that actual reaction. And then I was like, no, I can't make them feel bad for not knowing. But like I made it a point. I said, you know, tomorrow I'm going to ask you again, you know what you're going to do for homework? You're going to research what is Title IX. So they did some work, and they actually went around and started asking like other, so the girls, I didn't give some of the background. So the girls who are part of the group, they're huge lacrosse players. They are actually playing, they live at Berkshire because their family works there, but then they're ninth graders here and they'll go to Berkshire next year. And so maybe, you know, they'll go to Babson or maybe Yale, I don't know, you know. But I think like my job in middle school and junior, like ninth grade, is to like plant the seeds. And so I, you know, told them to go look up what Title IX is. And so they actually took it upon themselves, and they asked some people in the community. They asked the male lacrosse players and hockey players, and the boys, they also didn't know. So they started educating the boys. I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. This is what teaching is all about, right? And
Right.
so they started teaching them. And then they came, you know, they came back and they said, I learned this and I learned that. And like, I had to verify even more that Ms. Hanniford was actually like also a decent soccer player, you know? And so I called my friend. I was like, okay, you did some work. Now I'm going to do some work. So I called my friend and I said, can you just verify that Ms. Hanniford was like actually a good soccer, basketball, and softball player? And she was like, yeah, she was actually kind of great. And there's actually stuff online still. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So like, the full story that they, you know, really took a lot away from it. Even today, they're like, did you have your at lunch today? They're like, did you have your meeting? I was like, it's today. So like, I have to let them know that I shouted them out. I won't say their names, but they, you know, were great kids, and they actually took it upon themselves to learn a little bit more about Title IX. So like, this panel has really inspired me and inspired, you know, the young kids to actually learn a little bit more, because like they definitely weren't alive 50 years ago. I wasn't alive 50 years ago, but I think the impact, and like part of my job really is about access, right? And so like
Right.
for them to know like that they have the ability to play these sports because Title IX was passed and they have that access now, I think that does allow them to feel that sense of appreciation. So I had fun going through that whole exercise.
That's awesome. And it's great to impart that wisdom and some of that history that has been lost, as I mentioned. You had mentioned going back to your reference book that you got when I think you said you were a junior. I have a live reference person in Robin Shepard. You know, what is a panel on any of this stuff without, and on women's athletics, without a mention of Robin Shepard, right? Our former associate athletic director, and multitude of coaching positions, wildly successful field hockey and women's lacrosse coach, and did a little stint in basketball, as you may know, Shantel, and swimming. But always gave some great talks on Title IX, paired up with Rennie Fulco, and I'll in some of her classes, and I'll mention Rennie at the end. Lynn, Kim, it's an important topic, and you know, thoughts on that?
Well, again, coming from Malaysia, I think when I was at Trinity, I was just grateful to be able to participate and to find that, wow, it's so cool that school like Trinity would invest in me to come and represent Trinity to play. And obviously, I think I didn't come from the U.S. and didn't know much about the history, and obviously Title IX at that time, not, you know, I'm sure it made a huge impact, but obviously unaware until I got into coaching, and obviously even more so now in the collegiate world. And realize how important it is. And obviously I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for for Title IX. And again, that's when I start realizing, gosh, all the, pioneers and, especially in squash, there are a lot of great women coaches in the past that have kind of sort of started this, being able to lead when there was, still predominantly male coaching world in squash. But there were a few women, like obviously like have Wendy. There's a Wendy Lawrence from that just retired from George Washington. She paved a lot of the way. And we've got Gail Ramsey from Princeton. There are a lot of like really good female, coaches that have paved a lot of ways for all of us. And they were just never mentioned, but I think they've done a great job in, encouraging more women to play squash, more girls to participate, and encouraging us to keep up, striving to do better for the sport. So, I definitely pay much more attention to it now, and I consistently try to encourage our women on our team, to pursue. And coaching is a really good job. It makes a huge impact in the world. I'm proud to say one of our recently graduated that graduated in 2020, Helen Teagan, she's from Seattle. She took up coaching. She's now coaching in New York City, starting as a first year, and she's always wanted to teach, and she never thought she would want to be a squash coach. And she's one from Yale that usually none of them would go after Yale to go into coaching. And it's good to see. And when I heard that she's going into that, I consistently encourage her. And if there was any opening somewhere else that would benefit her, I would give her a call, like, check this out, maybe, go look into it, because there's not many women coaches right now in our sport. And it would be great if you can, keep working towards that. So that's my experience in terms of what the Title IX impact for me.
Yeah, I think I just echo what Lynn and Michelle said about being grateful for the access. I wouldn't have been able to play the sport that I loved at a school that I loved if it wasn't for Title IX, and not have to really think about it. Like you said, I think we need to kind of re-educate ourselves and re-educate the next generation that things weren't always that way, and that there were some women a little bit older than those of us on this panel that really fought really hard, and men too. But there were some women that laid the groundwork and coached some sports that they had no background in, like Robin did, just to fight tooth and nail to have teams and to give girls the opportunity to play a sport that they love. So mostly for me, I'm just grateful. I've worked in youth hockey and now in junior. So obviously, like, my day-to-day as a coach isn't as impacted by Title IX, other than the girls that I was coaching committing to college, and one of them had their program cut, actually. So that was kind of a shocking moment when that happened. But for the most part, it's just being so grateful that we've been able to grow up in a world that we can do what we love.
Right.
Both
And an anniversary is always a great opportunity to honor the past, learn about the past, realize and be appreciative of what you have, but then also recognize and acknowledge, especially in this arena, there's a lot more work to be done, right? And so, wow, what great leaders in your responses. I am mindful of time, and we are nearing the end of our panel. Our final segment will be rapid fire, Brene Brown style. As you may know, Brene is a social psychologist who's researched and studied courage, vulnerability, and empathy, among other topics. She's authored several books, including Dare to Lead, but also delivers a widely popular podcast called Unlocking Us. At the end of her podcast, she asked her guests questions in a segment called Rapid Fire. So I will ask you a question or offer an idea, and you will respond with a quick phrase or a word. So no explanation of your response is really necessary. We're only looking for the what and not the why, but a fun way to wrap up and really give everyone a quick snapshot of your ideas and interests based on your responses. So we will kick it off with Lynn, our most veteran alumni here. So here we go. Rapid fire for Lynn. What athlete did you idolize growing up?
Michelle Martin, former world number 1 from Australia, squash player.
Okay. What athlete do you admire now?
I love Formula One, Lewis Hamilton,
Ooh,
Petronas, Malaysia. That's why I kind of have that relationship there.
interesting. Favorite book?
Range by David Epstein. I love that book.
Awesome. Favorite show on TV?
Favorite, yeah, I love watching shows. I love to laugh, so Jimmy Fallon.
Favorite Trinity faculty or staff member?
I have to say thank Pablo Delano Photography. I have 2. I have Wendy Bartlett to thank for, also one of my favorites until today.
That's awesome. And most memorable athletics experience at Trinity?
Winning 2 national team championships for squash when we beat, oh my gosh, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, 9-love, 9-love, 9-love. I don't know, Wendy has to correct me. Has it ever been done since then?
Right. That's awesome.
So that was most memorable.
Well, you want to talk about pioneers. There you go. Kim, here we go. What athlete did you idolize growing up?
Peter Bondra, hockey player.
All right. What athlete do you admire now?
Naomi Osaka.
Mm. Favorite book?
Mind Gym by, I'm blanking on the name right now, but I'm rereading it right now. So
very cool. Favorite show on TV?
Ever would be Breaking Bad.
Favorite Trinity faculty or staff member?
I believe he's still current, so I'll go with favorite current would be Professor Weiss.
All right. Most memorable athletics experience at Trinity?
Probably when we didn't win a national championship, but we did get selected to go to the national tournament for the first time in program history. And I just remember watching the selection show with my teammates, and we all went nuts and ran around campus and put up signs for ourselves, which is probably really interesting. But we called it the best day. So the best day was probably my favorite experience.
That's awesome. That's a great label. Shantel, here we go. Rapid fire. What athlete did you idolize growing up?
Allen Iverson.
What athlete do you admire now?
It's a tie. I couldn't really pick one. Candace Parker and Steph Curry.
All right.
I love Steph Curry.
Lynn, you can't have too many.
I know.
Favorite book?
All About Love by Bell Hooks.
Favorite show on TV?
It's a similar setup to this. So it's The View. It's all women, and they're talking about important stuff.
Oh, cool. It might be a good idea. Favorite Trinity faculty or staff member?
So I had this written down before we started talking about her. Like Penny, she is
Penny.
She is just amazing. But Wendy Davis, my coach, she's also great. So yes, I would say another tie.
Yep. I find it interesting. You all mentioned your former coaches at Trinity, so that's pretty cool too, and a huge nod to them. Favorite, most memorable athletics experience at Trinity?
Definitely didn't win national championship. Amherst beat us 3 years in a row for the first round. But we did have some memorable moments. I hit a buzzer beater in a game against Hamilton, so that was like a big deal.
Awesome. And to wrap us up, Michelle, rapid fire. Here we go. What athlete did you idolize growing up?
Growing up, it was Sue Bird and the UConn women's basketball team. Big fan.
Yeah. Go UConn. Yeah. What athlete do you admire now?
It's going to sound cheesy, but my current athletes, I just am in such awe of what they do on a daily basis, and they're my favorite.
Awesome. Favorite book?
Favorite book, The Energy Bus by John Gordon.
Favorite show on TV?
Well, I cut the cord when I bought a house, so I don't have cable anymore. So favorite show to stream is Grey's Anatomy on Netflix.
Good one.
All right. I guess I'm dating myself when I say on TV, right? Sorry about that. Favorite Trinity faculty or staff member?
That is so challenging, but I'm going to say for me, it was the Holy Trinity of Robin Shepard, Ann Parmenter, and Kate Livesay. Sort of 3 guiding lights for me.
love how you slipped in the Trinity too. Most memorable athletic experience at Trinity.
So Kim, similar to Kim, losing in the NESCAC playoffs, but knowing that we were having a shot for an at-large bid. Back then, they didn't just stream it on a TV, they didn't stream it online. You had to find a place that had the channel to watch the selection show. So we went to a bar in Hartford and that was convinced to put on TV and with the whole team, and they cleared out the space for us, and it was amazing. Really one of my favorite days.
Wow, the length you go to.
Yeah.
Passion.
Well, that's awesome. And, you know, I find it interesting. It doesn't matter whether you won a national championship or not. It's what you took from your experience, right? And you all had very different experiences, but very memorable ones. So in closing, our time is up here. As a reminder, please complete the post-event survey, which will be sent to the email address that you registered for the event with. Hopefully many of you who tuned in tonight received an email referring to the Kudo board to post your photos and favorite memories from your time as a Bantam student athlete. If you didn't, you can go to the 50th anniversary of Title IX logo link on the news scroll at the Bantam Sports website. Also, please keep an eye out for the announcement of our next event in June, which will be a virtual presentation and discussion with esteemed and much beloved Professor Rennie Folco, Director of the Public Policy and Law Program. Thank you so much to our wonderful panelists. It's been an honor to have this conversation with you, and to you, the audience, for joining us. Good night from Hartford, and as always, go Bantams.